We'll start from the beginning. As you all know, our topic is to serve and to save. And the key word that's often repeated during this week's study is servant. And there seems to be three characters that are mentioned as servant in our lesson. There are three main characters in Isaiah in these chapters that we have seen. And one is a servant that represented the people of Israel, an anointed Messiah servant who would have a difficult mission. By name, and his name is Cyrus. So you have three main characters representing a servant. And the topics for discussion: a servant people, which is the people of Israel. And then number two, a servant Messiah. And then number three, a liberator Messiah. And number four, a difficult mission for the servant. Sometimes Isaiah is difficult to understand because it's very poetic and it is symbolic at times, and it jumps in time from Bible times, from the Old Testament, and then to the New Testament about Jesus. So you see, it's jumping here and there, and I'm glad that the author of the lessons this quarter has organized them with comments and observations so that the ideas would connect. Otherwise, Isaiah would be confusing. At some point, it talks about Jesus as the coming Messiah, and then it talks about another Messiah, which is Cyrus, and the Cyrus, the conqueror, the emperor. And so it jumps here and there, but it's good that the author has found a way to unite these themes together. First, now let's talk about servant people. These are the people of Israel. In Isaiah 41:8-9, it says, "But you, Israel, are my servant, Jacob, whom I have, hold on a second, whom I have chosen, the descendants of Abraham, my friend, you whom I have taken from the ends of the earth, called from its farthest regions, and said to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you and have not cast you away." So here it talks about Israel, and then it says Jacob, and then it says my servant Abraham. So all these represent God's servant people. And that's why the title of this week's lesson is To Serve and Save, because these servants are serving God. Okay, this servant undoubtedly represents the people of God at that time, Israel and Judah. We might well conclude that the next references to the servant in Isaiah also represent Israel. However, the other mentions refer to an anonymous Messiah who would free Israel and would die as a sacrifice. And these are found in Isaiah 49 and all those texts that you can see. So there are two servants in Isaiah. The first one is the people of God who are saved and redeemed. The second one is anonymous, and he is the redeeming Messiah. I don't know why they say anonymous, but anonymous because at first it does not specifically name Jesus as the redeeming Messiah. It only says the Messiah. And so there are several Messiahs in the book of Isaiah, and let's look at that in the next few studies. A servant Messiah. Now, Isaiah 42:1 says, "Behold, my servant whom I uphold, my elect one, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the Gentiles. Now, this servant, now clearly represent the Messiah. As you can see in the picture on the upper right, John the Baptist baptizing Jesus, the Messiah. Who is this anonymous servant? What is his mission? Isaiah 42:1. He brings justice to the Gentiles. Then Isaiah 42:4, he fulfills his goals with silence and meekness, according to this verse in Isaiah. So when Jesus was before Pilate, he was silent. He never spoke a word. Isaiah 42:5-6, he acts as a covenant between God and his people. So clearly, this servant Messiah is Jesus Christ. Now, we'll move on. In Isaiah, again, this text, Isaiah 42:7, this talks about one who brings light and hope to heal the blindness and to free the prisoners. So again, Jesus has brought light and hope to heal the blindness of people. This servant does a similar work to that of the rod from the stem of Jesse and the promised son. So all these functions, these responsibilities are the responsibilities that have been attributed to Jesus, and we will find out more. Therefore, this servant is the Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth. There's no question about it. Okay, so first we talked about servant people, the people of Israel. Now, this next servant is Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And then now we talk about the liberator Messiah, liberator. Why? Because this Messiah liberated the people of Israel. And this is Cyrus. Now, Jesus liberated us all, but in a limited capacity. Cyrus the emperor, the king of Babylon, was anointed by the Lord. It says, thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have, just a second, whose right hand I have held to subdue nations before him and loose the armor of kings, to open before him the double door so that the gates will not be shut. So Cyrus was anointed by the Lord as a Messiah. Why did God call Cyrus, a Persian king, Messiah or anointed? He said to the Lord, to his anointed, to Cyrus. Cyrus was the anointed, and yet he was a Persian king. He's not even a Jewish king. He's a Persian. By the way, Persia today is Iran. Today, Persia is the country of Iran. It was the old Persian kingdom. And so, just so you know that today, Persia still exists, only it is called Iran. Now, anointed signifies God's blessing or call for a sacred for a purpose. So, you know, the dictionary term for anointed means pouring, ceremonial pouring of oil on the head, because it is God's blessing or a call or a sacred for a purpose. When David was anointed by Samuel, David was called to be for a purpose, for a blessing, for an appointment. So an anointing is an appointment for a certain objective. In Israel, two types of people were anointed: priests and kings. In addition, prophets were also sometimes anointed, and these texts would tell us about that. The Messiah is the anointed par excellence. What does this mean? The Messiah, which is Jesus Christ, is the anointed by God par excellence, meaning nothing else, nobody else can compete with the Messiah. There are many Messiahs. Israel was called the Messiah. I mean, Cyrus was called a Messiah. Several Messiahs, but the best, the highest Messiah, excellent Messiah, is Jesus Christ. He is prophet, king, and priest, all in one. Imagine, Jesus is a prophet, a king, and a priest. By the way, the Muslims accept that Jesus was a prophet. They do not accept that Jesus is a part of God. They only accept him as a prophet, but they say that next to Prophet Muhammad is Jesus Christ. So they believe that Jesus is a prophet. And the Quran, their Bible, also mentions even Mary, the mother of Jesus. So in a way, the Muslims believe in Jesus, only they don't believe him as beyond a prophet, as one of the prophets. However, Cyrus was anointed to fulfill only one of those roles. So he was a Messiah, but only one role. He's anointed king called by God to carry out a specific mission to free his people. And in this point, it's good for us to observe that God can use non-Jewish to be his anointed. Sometimes we think that only us Adventists can be saved in God's kingdom. But let us not, in fact, not even all Adventists will be saved, they say. So not only Adventists, God said, I have people out of this fold. So that God uses, even, he used Nebuchadnezzar to take good care of Daniel and his friends and the people of Israel. And now Cyrus was used. What did Cyrus do? Let's go to the next. Who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, he shall perform all my pleasure. This is what God said of Cyrus, my shepherd, he shall perform all my pleasure, saying to Jerusalem, you shall be built, and to the temple, your foundation shall be laid. So God used Cyrus. And you will see both the Bible and archaeology confirm the fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecies about Cyrus. Cyrus dried up the Euphrates to conquer the city of Babylon. He also authorized the return of the Jews to Jerusalem and gave them everything they needed to rebuild the temple. So you see, Cyrus did a lot for the people of Israel. He authorized the return of the Jews. You know, as the king of Babylon, he could have said, oh no, Jews, you stay here because we need you as our servants, our slaves. But Cyrus, because he was appointed by God, and God showed him visions and told him, Cyrus, you are my anointed. Be sure to release the people. And when you release the people, you also return all the things to Jerusalem that your father or your other emperors have brought out of Jerusalem. Take them all back to Jerusalem. So Cyrus was a man of God, even if he was not an Adventist, even if he was not a Jew. All this was foretold 150 years before it happened. This has led some people to deny that these chapters were written by Isaiah. Nevertheless, the Dead Sea Scrolls confirm that the book of Isaiah has only one author. Isaiah the prophet, who was inspired by God, lived in the 7th century BC. So you will notice here that Isaiah was a real prophet, a genuine prophet, because he foretold the liberation of Israel 150 years before it happened. Here, Sister Ellen G. White wrote, as the king Cyrus saw the words foretelling more than 100 years before his birth, the manner in which Babylon should be taken, as he read the message addressed to him by the ruler of the universe. When you say ruler, meaning God, his heart was profoundly moved, and he determined to fulfill his divinely and appointed mission. Cyrus was obedient to God. When God appointed him, you should let the Judean captives free, he helped them restore the temple of Jehovah in a written proclamation published throughout all his kingdom. Cyrus made known his desire to provide for the return of the Hebrews and for the rebuilding of their temple. So you see how Cyrus helped God's people. Why? Because Cyrus obeyed God. Cyrus had visions of God, and God told him, "You are my instrument to liberate the people." Now, this one is now talking about a different mission, difficult mission for the servant. It is too small a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob, to restore the preserved ones of Israel. I will also give you as a light to the Gentiles. I think you will agree with me that this servant is now Jesus Christ. It is relatively easy to identify the servant. Why? Who is the servant? Number one, in verse 1 of Isaiah 49, he was called from the womb, and that's from Virgin Mary. And then he has a sharp sword in his mouth. And then God would be glorified in him. His message would not be accepted. You notice that Jesus' message to the Jews was ignored by the Jews. He would gather the tribes of Israel. He would be a light to the Gentiles. He would be despised and abhorred. Despite his difficult mission and the rejection, Jesus didn't give up. Thanks to his perseverance, he can give us everlasting redemption today. So imagine the difficulties, 7 difficulties. He was called from the womb. He has a sharp sword in his mouth. He would be glorified in it. His message would not be accepted. All these difficult responsibilities that Jesus experienced. Ellen G. White says this in Lift Him Up, May 28. In the heart of Christ, where reigned perfect harmony with God, there was perfect peace. He was never elated by applause, nor dejected by censure or disappointment. Amid the greatest opposition and the most cruel treatment, he was still of good courage. When we are born from above, the same mind will be in us that was in Jesus, the mind that led him to humble himself that we might be saved. I'm so thankful that we have Ellen G. White, who helps us understand more about text in the Bible in history. Ellen White would explain all this, but especially Ellen White has always upheld Jesus Christ.